What's up, world? What's up, world? What's up, world? Or should I say, calling all real estate investors. It is Monday, so you know it is triple M time, right? Triple M, Mortgage Minded Mondays. That's a tongue twister for you, right? And I'm not the only one who's twisted by the title, right? Shout out to well, that was Arthur Harris, right? Arthur and Aaron Harris, who are also a bit confused and tongue twisted with the title that the lovely Hyacinth created, right? Um it's Monday and we back again. I'm Tavares Jones, licensed stockbroker, licensed life insurance annuity broker, and I'm also a licensed mortgage broker. And we have the tongue twister herself.
It's three words, but okay. I like iteration. I like words that start with the same letters. So thank you for that wonderful introduction. It is Mortgage Minded Mondays. Mortgage Minded Mondays. Can you say that three times fast? Mortgage Minded Mondays, Mortgage Minded Mondays, Mortgage Minded Mondays. You can do it. Practice that at home. And on Mondays, we talk about mortgages. I am Hyacinth Henderson, co CEO of the Henderson Financial Group. I am a licensed stockbroker, a registered investment advisor representative, an annuity and insurance broker, and a mortgage loan originator. And on Mondays, Tavares and I talk mortgages. The name of our firm is the Henderson Financial Group. We are based in sunny South Florida. We do full service financial planning, life insurance, retirement planning, mortgage loan origination, real estate. We do most things that deal with your financial house and your financial plan. Today, we wanted to talk about investing, real estate investing. And so, we're going to talk about a specific type of loan product in which real estate investors, that is current investors or aspiring investors, can qualify for and you may not know about. But before we get into the meat and potatoes and the details of the product, I wanted to very briefly talk about why I believe that everyone under the sound of our voice should look into becoming a real estate investor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Very, very important. I like real estate for the cash flow. When I think real estate, I am not a person who buys properties and flips properties. There are some people who do that. For me, number one, it's too labor intensive for me. Number two, I don't want to deal with the taxes and give Uncle Sam half of my money because I bought the property and I flipped it within a short period of time or even a longer period of time. And most importantly, I like cash flow. I like to set up different pots on the stove, is what I like to call it, so that I can make sure I'm always eating. Now, why do I say that everyone under the sound of my voice should be thinking about or considering becoming a real estate investor if you're not already an investor? Because number one, when it's time for you to retire, you're going to need income. And working at the Henderson Financial Group, one of the things that I see every single day is that when we talk about people's assets and what they have, most people only prepare for retirement by investing in their employer's sponsored retirement plan.
Mm-hmm.
So that means when it comes time to retire, they're going to either have their 401k and they're going to roll it over to an IRA. They may have their 403b that they roll over to an IRA. Some of you who are grandfathered in, you may actually receive a pension. So that can be an additional source of income. And then we have Social Security income. But what I oftentimes find is that the income sources that you have is not enough.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we start saying you don't want to work anymore for the rest of your life, do you have any more sources of income coming in? Real estate proves as a great way to have a different source, an additional source of income coming in. So that's why I like real estate. I don't like it for flipping. I don't like real estate so that I can have the biggest and best house on the block, because that means my mortgage payment is going to be high, my utility is going to be high because I got to have everything lit up, the pool man, and that's not why I like real estate. I like real estate for cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to talk about investing in investors today. What do you think about that?
I love it. I love it. And you're absolutely right when it comes to gathering real estate, right? And if you ever played Monopoly here at our office, right? Because we have our times where we, put the phones on hold and we kind of just go into a room, the conference room, and then we'll play Monopoly, right? Of course, we're financial professionals and we dearly love real estate. And while you're in that room, the name of the game is wherever you land, you buy, right?
Mhm.
Wherever you land, you buy, and it teaches you a real lesson for real life because that's what we try to do, right? We try to mimic that monopoly table in real life because the more properties you have, the more money you can make, the more valuable you are as a person, the less your children have to do or your lineage has to do. And it puts you in a position of power when you really know how to utilize real estate as a tool in your tool belt, because you can do so much with it. You can do so much with it. You can actually turn 1 into 3, turn 3 into 6, right? By utilizing equity and all kind of stuff. And we'll get into those details in future shows. But yeah, love real estate and the gathering of it. Like when you buy real estate, it's like you're buying income almost. It's like when you put that money out there, that money is gonna pay you money in return. It's different from buying a car, right? Well, some people can put their car on Hire Car and Turo and stuff like that. And big shout out to y'all. But it's similar to that. But real estate has it has anchored itself, right, to be a long-term investment, and it's a proven long-term investment. It's actually one of the best ways to build wealth. Most millionaires have their funds into or their investments into real estate.
And real estate investing. And when you think about it, it just makes sense because people are always going to need somewhere to live. They're going to need somewhere to live. They're going to need somewhere to work. They're going to need somewhere to play. They're going to need buildings. Unless we are going to live outside in the elements forever, then we're going to always need real estate, some sort of real estate, whether it's a single family, a multi-unit, an apartment, whatever the case may be. So we're talking to real estate investors. And as we talk to real estate investors, we want to talk to you about some financing and special financing that you can qualify for, because we understand that once you bite the apple of becoming a real estate investor, then one of the next things that you do is start understanding more about how your money works and how to make your money work for you. And one of the things that you're going to have to understand when you become a real estate investor is the tax law. You're going to have to understand how to position yourself so that the money that you make continues to make money for you without you giving a large amount of that to the IRS, to Uncle Sam. And so because of that, real estate investors get very conscious and savvy when it comes to income and reporting income and things like that and writing things off, because they don't want to pay a lot in taxes, and also because they actually have expenses that are associated with the property. Yeah. Now, when we talk about qualifying for a traditional mortgage, now, if you missed last week's show, I want you to go back and watch that, because I use the example of an ice cream shop. There are some people who like plain vanilla ice cream. You want 2 scoops in a cone, maybe even a cup. We talked about that. That will be called a traditional QM, qualified mortgage. For the past couple of weeks, we've been talking to you about your credit scores, about your bank statements and things like that. All of those things we have been speaking to you about were in alignment so that you could qualify for a traditional qualified mortgage. Today, we are not dealing with the vanilla ice cream. Today, we are dealing with the ice cream that has multiple flavors. You may have some mix-ins. You can get it in a waffle cone if you want, in a waffle cone bowl, not just a regular cone. So the mortgages that we're going to be talking about for investors today is so that you can qualify for a mortgage and still obtain a property without going through all the red tape and being straight and narrow and plain vanilla. That's what I was thinking about. Yeah. Being vanilla.
Get to add some sprinkles and some cookie dough. Yeah. And you get real creative with it, right? Some cake pieces, Reese's pieces, all kind of stuff.
Yes.
So you ready to get into it?
Yeah, let's get into it. I think I was segueing into talking about taxes, because I think a lot of times, well, this will go right into it. So go ahead. I'll hold that thought and I'll let you go ahead.
Okay. So for these non-QM loan types, right? There's several different. So today we're gonna start with the DSCR loan, right? It's an acronym. It's debt service coverage ratio, right? Debt service coverage ratio. So for all of y'all who in 6th and 7th grade who are like, oh my God, fractions, who are killed by fractions, right? Here they are again, right? Yeah. Your math teacher tried to teach you these fractions, and you're like, man, we don't use fractions at the grocery store. We don't use fractions in real life, but here they are, right? But this is a simple fraction. So we all know fraction has a top and bottom, a numerator and a denominator. Well, numerator at the top, denominator at the bottom. I was one of those people that didn't like fractions. Can you tell? So at the very top is going to be the amount that you're collecting in rent. So if you're charging your tenants $3,000 per month, that'll be your top number of the ratio. And the bottom number is going to be your PITIA, right? So your principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and association if you have one, right? So you'll just divide those numbers up. Rental income divided by the expense of having that property, the total expense of having that property when it comes to principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and what did I just say? Association.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to get a positive number, right? Well, I'm not gonna say a positive number. You want to get, your goal is to have a number at least at 1, right? If you have 1, that's a golden. So if you got let's say you're collecting $3,000 from your tenants and your PITIA comes up to $2,999, you're actually in the clear. You're making $1 per month, but you're in the clear. That ratio will equal 1.00 something. And that's where it starts.
I feel like you jumped in, you didn't light the candles, you didn't put the music on, you ain't whisper sweet nothings in my ear, you didn't ask me if I wanted sparkling or still water. You just like, we here.
Oh, most definitely. Oh, we most definitely here.
Well, let's back up for the people like me who want a little, ambiance and some stuff before. So I love the example that you gave. I love that you broke down the formula because it's a very, very important formula when it comes to the DSCR loan. However, for those of you who like a little, lick my earlobe a little bit, you like a little special situation first. Let me tell you what Tavares is talking about. The DSCR, debt service coverage ratio loan, is a loan that uses the property to qualify, meaning I don't care about your income. Now, this is different because in a traditional mortgage, when you go to qualify for a mortgage, when you stand in line and say, I want something vanilla and plain, the first thing they're going to say is, what's your income looking like? We don't care about the property. What is your income looking at? Let me see your W-2s, your pay stubs, your tax returns. But as I alluded to it a few moments ago, when you become a real estate investor, you're going to have to learn how to play the tax game. You're going to have to learn the tax code. And when you do that, you understand that there are certain advantages that Uncle Sam gives you for becoming a real estate owner. When you own property, I always tell people the tax code gives the most breaks to 2 sets of people. Number 1, business owners, and number 2, property owners. Why is that? Because Uncle Sam says, you're helping us. You're supplying jobs for people so that they don't need government assistance. So we're going to give you tax breaks and tax advantages. And also, if you own property, then you're helping us as well because you're getting people off the street. So the tax code benefits those 2 sets of people the most. So when you become a real estate investor and you understand that the tax code benefits you, of course, you're not going to show $100,000 in rents collected. You're not going to show all this income so that Uncle Sam can tax you. You're not going to do that. You're going to go to a certified tax coach, shout out to Larissa Humphrey, who knows strategy and can say, you have all this real estate. Let me show you how to do this so that you don't pay all these taxes because the tax code was written for you. Hold that thought. When you go to qualify for a traditional mortgage, they're going to say, I want to see your tax returns. You're like, hold up. I'm over here in the VIP line. The tax code was written for me. My tax returns are not going to show a whole bunch of income because I'm not being taxed on it because the government said, since I'm supplying housing for people and buildings for people to work and you're helping the economy, I'm going to give you a break. A traditional lender that's only serving you vanilla is going to say, sorry, we can't help you. Tax returns or nothing. What Tavares is speaking about, the DSCR, says, I don't care about your tax returns. We're not going to use your income to qualify. We're going to use the property's income to qualify. So I just gave you the whisper in your ear. Do you want sparkling to still? Let me rub your feet, put the baby oil on you. I just gave you the little breakdown. Now we get to the point where we're like, oh, you mean to tell me you don't want my tax returns? You want to see the debt service coverage ratio for the property? This is golden.
Yes. Your income and your employment does not matter.
Yes.
Right. So that's just like if you were dating, right? And you don't have to worry about her asking, how much money you make, right? Because that's, that for men, that's important. Well, for women, that's important for a men to have a certain level of income, right? But when it comes to this loan type, It doesn't matter. Also, women want a man to have a job, right? So they want to know where you work and what you do. What's your career choice? What business do you own? This loan type, they don't care about that. As Heisey just mentioned, it's solely based on, well, not solely based on. It's primarily focused on the income that
Of the
property's
property.
gonna generate, right?
Mhm.
Your credit as well, but we'll get to that in
That's
in
a
a little
big deal.
bit.
It's
Yeah.
also a big deal for business owners. Let's
Yeah.
go back. What bucket do you fall into? You're a real estate investor, you're a business owner, you're somebody who you got money coming in, but
Mhm.
you understand you're with a certified tax coach, you're with the Henderson Financial Group, and you're not showing all this money so Uncle Sam can hit you over the head in taxes. You're not
Mhm.
doing that.
Mhm.
So they're like, okay, here's the thing. Because you understand how to play the tax code and you may not show large amounts of income tax, we're going to use the property
Yeah.
to qualify you for the loan, and you also have to have a decent credit score. Now when I say decent, you can get a DSCR loan down to 620.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
decent credit score. Of course your rate is going to reflect that,
Yes.
but here's the other kicker. You also got to have some money.
Yes.
You got to have some money.
Yes.
And there are some creative DSCR loans because we can do a refinance on a DSCR. What does that mean? Well, let me go back because I don't want to get too excited and too ahead of myself. When I say you have to have some money, what I'm not saying they're not going to ask for your income and only use the property to qualify you, and you got $2.99 in the bank. That's not going to happen. They're going to say, we're not asking for your tax returns, W-2s and pay stubs. We're going to use the property to qualify you, and we want to see how much money you got in the bank.
Yes.
Now, unlike a traditional loan, we're not going to ask you for 12 months. We may ask you for 2 months.
Mhm.
You got 30, 40, 50, 60, 100,000 sitting in the bank for the past 2 months. You can show us 2 months bank statement, and you have an acceptable credit report, and the property's debt service coverage ratio is positive. You can get a loan. This is golden for my people who have lots of property. And especially during this time when the economy is doing what it is doing and you need some money.
Mhm. Mhm.
And the rates to go out there and borrow money, personal loans is high.
Mhm.
You can say, you know what, I got all these free and clear properties.
Mhm.
I haven't been showing income. My tax returns
Yeah.
have been shown so that I don't pay the IRS a lot of money because they told me I don't have to pay them a lot of money.
Mhm.
And I have these free and clear properties. And no, a traditional, when I say nobody, a traditional lender won't give me a loan because they keep asking for my tax returns.
Yes.
Here's something for you.
Mhm.
Because now you can say you have these properties. And here's another thing I like about DSCR loans, and I'm gonna let you get into the meat and potatoes of it. See, I had to like, you know, I had to set the mood.
It's the woman in her.
I set the mood for me.
Yeah.
Like, dog, it ain't gonna even work if you don't set the mood.
A lion just want to eat, you know.
Nah,
A
that
lion-
ain't gonna work over
a
here.
lion just
I'm
wanna
like,
eat.
what are you talking about? What are you doing? So now that I've set the mood, we're gonna let you get into the meat and potatoes. But I want y'all to understand why this is such a beautiful opportunity for people who are serious about being real estate investors.
Mhm.
Because there you'll get to the point, even if you do make $150,000 a year or $200,000 a year, depending on how many properties you have, you may get to the point to where your traditional lender, you won't qualify anymore
Mhm.
because your income can only support so many properties. So you're like, well, something has to give.
Yeah.
You know, the property is cash flowing. Why won't you give me a loan? Sorry, we only serve vanilla over here. You
Yeah.
want 2 scoops or 1, cone or cup.
Yep.
If you want something else, you have to go down the street.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
let's break down the DSCR a little bit more, T.
Yeah, and to
Mhm.
piggyback off your last
Veggie
point.
back.
To veggie back off your last point, right? The DSCR replaces your DTI, the need for your DTI ratio. So a few shows ago, we spoke about DTI, your front end ratio and your back end ratio. But with this DTI loan, that doesn't even matter. So your income doesn't matter, your employment doesn't matter, and your debt to income ratio doesn't matter. You may say, why is that important? One, you may have a long list of properties that you own and you have mortgages on those properties, right? Your income is only but so high. And if you have a tax strategist, you're reducing your income on paper, but your debts are still high because you have several mortgages. Or you may have student loans, right? Student loans, they're next month they'll be back in effect when it comes to mortgages and payments and things of that nature. So your DTI is not a factor here. So that's helps you qualify right, to get into that property is one stress reliever or something that you something less that you have to worry about when it comes to getting approved for this loan. Like, what else? Oh, I don't want to go into that part yet.
No,
I don't want to go into that part yet.
Okay.
So there's trade-offs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as Heisey mentioned, that you got to have some cash. So let's say you want to purchase a property. Let's run a scenario, right?
Yes.
So let's say you want to purchase a property. It's a fourplex. It's a 4-unit, and your credit score is a 640, right? We'll say 640. Now, for a traditional loan, you may not be able to purchase a fourplex with a 640 credit score, right? Now, with this DSCR, you don't have to submit any tax returns. You don't have to submit any pay stubs, anything like that. However, in your credit score, right? Remember, it's always trade-offs with everything. So they may say, we'll accept you at this 640. However, we just need you to put a larger down payment down, right? So that's what Heisey was saying. You got to have to bring cash to the table. So since we're not going to be checking your documents, they call it a full doc loan, right? So since we're not going to go full docs and check, to make sure that you have clean underwear when it comes to getting this loan, what we'll do is we'll just need you to put a larger down payment. So they may require you to put like a 30% down if you have a lower credit score. So the show that we did on credit score is like essential for all loans that we do, because you're going to need credit for all mortgage types. Why? Because you're borrowing money. And when borrowing comes about, your credit score is very important. So lower the credit score, the more you have to put down. The higher the credit score, the less you have to put down. So love that. It's a beautiful part of the loan as well.
Yeah, and you have to think about it. I'm glad that you mentioned the importance of making sure that your credit score is where it needs to be so that you can get more favorable terms.
Mhm.
I also love the fact that you don't have to have a 700 credit score
Yeah.
to obtain a property. And this is important because sometimes, the credit scores, it be doing a funky watootsie.
Yeah.
It depends on what you got on, and if you have too many mortgages, if your credit card balances, it just depends. And there may be a situation where you have come across a deal that is a great deal. You're like, oh, I know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody,
Mhm.
and they're selling me this property at a discount and it's cash flowing out. I need to get into this loan right now.
Mhm.
I have the money. I have cash reserves. I qualify otherwise, but my credit score may not be a 700.
Mhm.
Okay, let's look at your options for this type of loan, because if the property is cash flowing out and you have the money required for a down payment, let's get you into the loan so that you can start receiving that cash flow and then building your portfolio. And then down the line, if you need to refinance the loan or do whatever you need to do, you can absolutely do that.
Mhm.
That's why I titled this show Calling Our Real Estate Investors, because you got to have a real estate investor mindset for these types of loans.
Mhm.
So when you come to us and you call and you say, hi, Cynthia Tavares, I saw the show you did regarding real estate investors and give me the best rate that you can.
Mhm.
It's not only about the best rate that we have. It's about rate in terms.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
not about the best rate. This is not, it's almost when Mr. Henderson says, when people call here and say, what's the least amount I can save? I want to
Mhm.
save the least amount. What's the
Mhm.
least amount I can put into this life insurance
Yeah.
policy? What's the least amount I can invest? We already know that you're not a good client for us because you're thinking small.
Mhm.
And you need to be thinking differently.
Mhm.
I was going to say, think big. You're thinking small. You need to be thinking big. You know what I mean? So you need to be thinking differently. Same thing with this loan. If you come here and you're like, I want to get this rate, that rate, I want to get this, make sure I have X, Y, and Z, then you might not understand the goal of using this loan. And the goal of using this loan is so that you can get into the property.
Yeah.
And it's not only about the interest rate, it's also about the terms that matter.
Yes.
Because with DSCR loans, because it's not plain vanilla, there are different types of properties that can qualify. We can qualify you for properties that you're going to rent Airbnb. We can qualify you for properties that maybe a traditional lender would not qualify you for.
Mhm.
So when you come here and you say, oh, I want to get very fancy, I want to add some mix-ins, open up your mindset and put on that investor's cap. And a real estate investor is most concerned with cash flow. And what goes into cash flow are going to be expenses, how much it costs to cover the debt, how much it costs to service the debt. So when you think about these things, I'm just encouraging you to come and call us with the mindset of, I'm getting out of the vanilla line, because I want some sprinkles and I want some mix-ins, and I know it's going to be a little bit different because when I only have vanilla ice cream, it's smooth and there's nothing crunchy in there. But now that you're giving me this mix-ins, it's something crunchy, and it may take a little bit for me to be like, what's this? It feel like a party in my mouth. What's going on? It's a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
It's different, but it's good. So that's why I wanted to, bring that to the conversation so that you guys can understand that, because it definitely is different. And let me say this before I pass it back to you, T. We're using the term DSCR, which is a relatively newer term. However, the types of funding is not new. These types of loan were traditionally for commercial property purchases or commercial property financing. When we did commercial property back in the day, most times you went to someone who specialized in commercial property because we understood that the property is what's going to qualify for the loan, not the borrower. Sure, you got to have a borrower that got some money and have a decent credit score, but the property is going to qualify the loan. Now we have opened this up. The lending world has opened this up and taken a similar model to commercial financing and said, we'll do this on loans that are 1 to 4 units. Because commercial is a completely different ball game. Your appraisal for commercial is going to cost you $1,500, $2,500. On a regular single family or residential loan, your appraisal may cost you between $375 to $550. So commercial is a different beast, but they're saying we'll give you that to where we allow the property to qualify you. This is huge. So what does this say? This means that what we told you to do a couple shows back and to silence all the chatter of them talking about, properties are high and all this and stuff. Now your goal becomes finding you a property that's going to cash flow out.
Right. And that that cash flow out, right, goes back into your appraisal, right? So every property has to get an appraisal. But with this loan type, what they do special is they're going to see how much the property is valued at, but they're also going to do some numbers to see how much this property is going to cash flow, how much rent can this property collect, right? So they have 2 different appraisals. They have one for a tradition. They have one for a more so traditional rental style. So if you do Section 8 or somebody that's going to be long-term rental, and then they also have, like Heisey mentioned, where if you do short-term rental, like Airbnb or VRBO, if you decide to go that option, keeping in mind, right, that to qualify, you have to have that ratio going back to one. So shorter-term rentals have higher cash flow than a longer-term rental. So what some people may do is if their property is in the market for a shorter-term rental, they may apply for a shorter-term rental so that way that they can show a higher increase, so that number that's on the top of the ratio, it'll be larger, that the monthly income that can go from $3,000 to $5,000 per month, right? And then the PITI is going to remain the same, $2,500 or $3,000, however much it costs to keep the property or to service that debt. So what that does is it helps you qualify. So the higher your ratio, the better your terms. So you can utilize that strategy if you try to, if this loan option is something that sparks your interest.
So this goes back to what you mentioned last week when you talked about increasing your rents.
Yes.
And raising your rents.
Yes.
And so oftentimes we have investors or clients who come in, that tenant's been there for 15 years. I never raised their rent. Well, if you want to be able to qualify for a loan like this, they're going to base the ratio off of the rents that's received.
Yes.
So this is a fine time for you to go through and look and raise your rents. And as we said, not to make any drastic increases, but to start raising your rents and get your tenants on leases. A lot of times people don't have their tenants on leases. Yeah. So if you're looking and you're listening, you're like, wow, I can qualify for a loan that's not going to ask me for my personal income, but it's going to use the property to qualify. Now let me start cleaning up my properties, because not only can you use these loans to purchase real estate, you can use these loans to refinance. And that's what I got excited about. I am very excited about, because I know so many investors, so many people who have real estate properties and they're sitting on them with equity. And they need to pull money out, but they're like, I'm a real estate investor. I ain't worked the job since a job worked me. You know what I mean? I don't work a job anymore. And I finagle my tax returns because the government says, because I'm a property owner, I get the best tax breaks. So that's why the DSCR I love. Another thing that I love is, or let me not say that I love, but I was thinking about is when we talked about that special HELOC. We talked about that first position HELOC. What I see is for my people who are very serious about becoming a real estate investor, for my people who are very serious about creating those buckets of cash flow, for my people who are very serious about ignoring what society is saying about real estate and now you can't buy real estate, what I see is using that special HELOC that we do here at the Henderson Financial Group, giving you access to money, access to cash. Now you may pull out 100,000, 200,000, whatever the case may be, because you have access to all this equity. And now you can go pick up an investment property via a DSCR loan where you don't have to qualify based on your income. You can be a $40,000 a year person.
That's correct.
You can actually be someone who works a regular 9-to-5 job and makes $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, $75,000 a year. But because you have done a loan where you have pulled out some equity, remember, they only want 2 months. They only want to see bank statements for 2 months. So we do the loan. Talk about creative. We do the HELOC. You want to buy real estate? You making 75. They was never going to qualify you in the vanilla line. Okay, no problem. We did the HELOC. We tapped in the equity. And instead of you tricking off this equity and going about all the stuff that instead of you spending your money to impress other people, you're actually spending your money to make more money. And so now we find you an investment property and we pull the money from there. And we show that. And remember, the property is going to cash flow itself. The debt is going to service itself. That's what debt service coverage ratio stands for. It's not just a fancy acronym. It literally is saying the property pays for itself. How beautiful is that? You could be making $75,000 a year and become a real estate investor. Now, if you didn't watch this show and if you didn't know about this type of loan, you would just be thinking, well, I got to make more income. How am I going to do this? I'm never going to qualify. My pay stubs and W-2s don't show. But now you have options. So this is why we say it pays to know who you're tapped into and create a strategy. We talked about strategy 2 shows ago, huh?
Yeah, for sure. And on top of that, let's say you have multiple rental properties, right? And let's say you got a tenant or a few tenants that's not paying you. They behind on their rent. So that puts you behind on your mortgage, right? Now with this DSCR, well, I'm gonna go back. With the vanilla loan, they want to see all of your properties that you have. And they want to make sure that you're on point with all of your mortgages. With the DSCR, they don't care about your other rental properties. Sorry about that. They just want to make sure that you are on point with your primary residence where you live and the subject property. So let's say you have a rental property that's a duplex and you want to refinance. You want to use a DSCR to refinance that property. They just want to make sure that that property itself is up to date as far as your payments and your property where you live. So your primary home and the property that you're doing a refinance on. They don't really care about those others. You can be falling behind. You could be 30 days late, 60 days late, 90 days late. As long as it doesn't show up on your credit report, like you going into foreclosure and you know, short sale, stuff like that, you're able to access that cash with the refinance, and then you can use that money to catch up the other property, right? Compared to if you were using a vanilla loan, you wouldn't have that option. You'll be stopped at the door, kind of like a big bouncer when you're trying to enter a club that you don't have no business in or you don't have no money to get into. You're gonna be stopped at the door. So these loans have so many benefits, right? I'm not even going. They're only benefits if you know how to use them, right? It's just like an arsenal of weapons. They're only beneficial to someone that knows how to use those guns, right? So there's so many different features, and Heisey just pointed out one, right? I just pointed out one, and there's so many different others. We can't give you guys too much on the show. We're just trying to, you know, sprinkle some things to sprinkle some thoughts for you guys to grow mentally, right? And
speaking of credit report, were you going to say something?
Go ahead.
Speaking of credit report, I love that you brought this to the conversation and you talked about the different properties and loans. Do you know that we have lenders that will give you a loan and not report to your credit report? They'll give you the loan. You'll get the loan and it won't show up on your credit report. You can get up to 8 of these loans and they won't report on your credit report. Why does that matter? 2 shows ago, we told you what your credit report is and why we want to make sure that's in tip-top shape, why we want to be mindful of how we present ourselves. So could you imagine where you got 3 or 4 rental properties that are cash flowing and the lenders have allowed the properties to qualify themselves and they're not showing up on your credit report? So let's say one day you do want to use your credit to qualify for something else. You don't have to worry about these loans showing up on your credit report. And something else that I really like about these types of loans is the lenders that we work with will allow you to close in an LLC. This is very important. Let's go back. Remember, I told you the tax code, in my opinion, benefits 2 sets of people: business owners and people who own real estate owners. So when you become a real estate investor, or when you start investing and buying properties for investment property purchase purposes, you understand, you start doing your homework, you understand that tax code, and you say, you know what, let me put this property in an LLC because I want to limit my liability there, so that if something happens with the tenant or on my land or whatever, a worker, they're not coming after me personally. This property is in the name of an LLC. If you stand in the vanilla line at the vanilla bank, they're going to say, no, you got to take the property out of an LLC in order to close. They're going to have you jump through these hoops and blah, 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 blah. The lenders we work with on a DSCR loan says, nope, we actually want the properties to be in an LLC.
Yeah.
So the property can be in an LLC. Keep it in an LLC.
Yeah.
Keep it in an LLC. Show me 2 months of bank statements. Let me see what your credit score is looking like. And most importantly, let's make sure the property is cash flowing out.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about financial freedom?
Yeah. And that's largely because the
Mhm.
DSCR is also known as a business purpose loan.
Mhm.
So if you're a business-minded individual and you have your life set up around business, then this can be a good loan for you, right? This can be a good loan for you to step in. And going back to the importance of purchasing property, right? Because they don't allow all these benefits for rookies, right? So you have to have some skin in the game. You have to have some type of ownership of property already, right? You have to own something, a primary residence. You don't have to own investment property, but you do have to own a primary residence first. If you don't own any property, then it could be hard to get this loan type for you. Why? Because this loan is reserved for rental properties and not primary residences. So if you apply for this loan and you don't own any primary residence, or you don't own any property at all, the lender may think, okay, well, you're going to move into this property, right, and utilize it as a primary residence. So may not be the best for your primary purchase. However, moving forward for subsequent properties, rental properties, it'll be best for you. It'll be a good move.
Get creative. Like I said, calling all real estate investors.
Yeah.
And so each situation is reviewed on a case-by-case situation.
Mhm.
We're doing this show to give you some general information because I know for certain that there are people who are out there who have these hopes, wishes, and dreams to further their real estate portfolio, to add more properties to their real estate portfolio. But they're like, how am I going to do it? I keep going into the line over here where they only serve vanilla and they keep turning me around. I keep going over here asking for butter pecan and they keep turning me around. I keep going over here and asking them, can they mix in some butter fingers with my butter pecan? And they keep turning me around. What am I going to do? So now that you know that this is available for you, then it's something that you can say, okay, let me give Hyacinth and Tavares a call to see how I can qualify. And this I really love, because most times when people call the Henderson Financial Group and they don't own any real estate at all, and they say they want to buy real estate and they want it to be their primary residence, one of the things that we have a conversation about is buying your investment property first. And so with many people, when they, especially when, I have the conversation with them, I say, buy an investment property, buy 1 to 4 units first to give yourself some extra income. Now, the majority of people who I give that advice to, they listen and they love it. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I listened to you. I bought an investment property. Now I have extra income coming in addition to my day job. But there are some people who say, Hyacinth, I wish that I would have found you 5 years ago or 10 years ago. I didn't know about this. So I bought my primary residence first. And now because I bought my primary residence and I only have one job, I don't have any extra income coming in. They're saying I don't qualify to buy rental property, buy investment property. This is where this loan can benefit you. So it puts you back in the game and gives you some options to say, well, you know what? I have cash reserves because I'm a good saver. I'm not spending every dollar and dime. I have, like Tavares said, my primary residence, but it was just challenging for me to be able to qualify with my fixed income for an investment property. This is where this can be something that may benefit you. And if your primary residence has equity in it and you want to do that special HELOC that we talked about, you can even if you don't have cash reserves right now, but your property value has increased and now you have equity, especially if you live in South Florida, you can say, hey, this is my golden opportunity. I bought my primary residence first, but there's still hope for me. Let me do the HELOC. Y'all do the HELOC for me. And then let me use that as cash reserves to be able to use this DSCR loan. So I was very excited when I started studying about this, learning about this. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a game changer.
And when the world changes, right, there's going to be other options out there for you guys. So I said that because the economy is doing this, right? It's all over the place. And trust and believe, sometimes people get scared and people get fearful. Like, oh my God, I should own a property by now. I'm 30 years old. I'm 35 years old. I don't own any rental property. Oh my God, I'm so scared. Oh my God, prices are so high. Oh my God, it's so hard to get a loan. When the economy changes, trust and believe, there's other changes being made on the back end to help people qualify. It's just where you plug your time and your attention to, right? So you guys plugging into the show and digesting the information, you guys are tapping into the right source to help you get your goals accomplished, right? There's always going to be changes made. So never get down on yourself. Never get, what's that D word? Depressed. Yeah, don't get depressed or down about, things that's taking place in the world, right? Always just, hold fast and also trust and believe that it's something out there for you, right? So it's always changes being made. So when we came across this, we were like, wow, this can be a great option for a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love that you mentioned that I believe that there's always a solution to a problem.
Yeah.
There's always a solution. But then if you go back to the propaganda of the media and the people around you, and it's not the media, they have an agenda, but sometimes the people around you, they just don't know. They're just ignorant. They didn't even know this existed. They're only telling you based on what they knew. Somebody that maybe a real estate investor is telling you, oh no, you can't qualify for no loan. Boy, how you gonna get you a loan? How you gonna They may be telling you got to go hard money, or they may be telling you all these things based on their experiences. A few shows back, we talked about stepping out of the space from only making decisions based on experiences and starting to make decisions based on analysis. So as Tavares said, with everything that's going on, you guys are doing the right thing by plugging into the shows on the Henderson Financial Group so that you can be enlightened with some more information and then develop a strategy. And so something that, again, I always believe is there's always a solution. I may not know the solution right now, but where do I have to move? Who do I have to talk to? How do I have to pivot so that I can get to the solution? And I believe that when you start to look at life like that, like there has to be a solution. Somebody got the solution to my problem, then you'll be led to the solution. But if you look at life as, oh my gosh, this is happening. They're telling me it's the end of the world. They're telling me, listen, some of them alerts that be coming up on the news, I'm like, they should put y'all behind bars for writing these headlines.
Yeah, for sure.
We know that it's an agenda, but sometimes you don't know that it's an agenda. You don't know that you're being steered that way and suppressed, and that's a story for a different show.
Yeah, and if you don't know if it's an agenda, you got to know that it's hope and it's a solution, as Heisey just said.
Yeah.
And this is just one. That's the most exciting part about it. This is just one non-QM loan, right? So there's a few different others for business owners. There's some out there if you want to purchase a primary residence, but we love real estate investing, so we wanted to start out with this one. And this one has a lot of meat and potatoes that you can cling on to. And if you are in the know, when I say in the know, meaning that you are a financially savvy person, you know that you're going to have to show income, right? Anytime you come in to try to get a loan, you're like, oh my God, I got to show this income. But for you to not have to do that, right? For you to not have to pull your tax returns or to bother your accountant for your 1099s or your W-2s, I think this is so incredible. And it can help a lot of people. Help a lot of people.
I love it. So potential real estate investors, current real estate investors, and realtors, because realtor, you know that if you have a deal that you're trying to close, you don't get paid till you get closed. And if you have a buyer or someone who's coming to you saying they want to get into real estate investing or they want to buy properties and their qualification, their pre-qualification, or their financing is not on point, send them our way. So those people should be contacting us, because this is what we eat, sleep, breathe, and live. What's one of the things we eat, sleep, breathe, and live. I like investments. Real estate investing is always my thing. Primary residence, but real estate investing, that's one of my first loves. Any more notes?
No, that's about it. But can't overlook the importance of a strong credit score, right? So the stronger your credit, or the better your credit, the better off you are, the better rates that you have access to. The more of a down payment that you have, the better rates that you have access to, right? And prepayment penalties.
Oh, yes.
That'd be a good one we can speak about.
Let's talk about that, yeah.
So DSCRs, right? They have prepayment penalties. And your traditional loan, your vanilla loan, they usually don't. 9 times out of 10, they don't have prepayment penalties. But these are investment based. So you have investors backing these loans, and they're trying to make money. Just like you trying to make money with your rental property and your tenants, they're backing your loan to try to make money. So what happens is your interest rate on a DSCR is pulled from a few different places. So like I say, your credit score is one place. your ratio, your debt service ratio, and also you have the option to choose your prepayment penalty, right? You have 1 through 5 years, and what that means is if you pay the property off or if you refinance the property, let's say you sign up for a 5 year prepayment penalty, you'll get a lower interest rate. Why? Because you're doing a lender a favor by saying, you know what, I'm gonna lock in and I'm gonna stay with you guys for 5 years. I'm gonna pay you guys your interest as I'm getting paid. I'm gonna pay you guys for 5 years. I won't refinance and go to another lender. I'm with you 5 years. However, let's say interest rates drop or whatever the case may be, you decide to refinance. Let's say you get a spike in equity and you want to refinance within 1 year of doing that DSCR. Then there's a payment penalty, a prepayment penalty for doing so. And like I say, you have a 1 year option. So your 1 year option will have a higher interest rate compared to a 3 year or a 5 year prepayment penalty option. So it's just something to keep in mind when it comes to the rate. And that's another thing that I love because you have the power of your interest rate compared to a vanilla loan. So like I said, if you follow that first show that we did and we spoke about the credit scores, right? So if you follow that to the T and you juice up your credit score, right? And then you have some reserves or you pull some equity from the HELOC that we got you. So you have some reserves. So you got cash and you got a great credit score. Now you had it, and then your property is also cash flowing. Now you have the option to say, you know what, I'm gonna go with a 5 year because I want the lowest rate. I don't plan on refinancing. I'm cool with this rate that they're offering me. So let me just lock in for 5 years, or let me lock in for 3 years. I'm cool with that. You know what? I like that interest rate. So you have so much power and flexibility with this loan type.
Yeah, very important. I'm glad that you brought that to the conversation because we need to understand that this is a two-way thing. Like it's not just one person in the I was gonna say in the bed, but I feel like I was already using that. It's like it's two of us in here, right? So it's you and it's the lender.
Yeah.
So the lender says, all right, now I'm gonna let the property qualify you. I'm gonna not require your tax returns, your W-2s, your pay stubs. I am going to get you in this property. Whereas with a vanilla lender, they wouldn't even let you in the room. You couldn't, but I'm going to charge you a prepayment penalty. Why? Because I want to get some too.
Most definitely.
I'm in this bed with you, and I don't want you to be the only one that's benefiting from this. What do I mean by that? When we talked a few shows ago, I explained that lenders lend you money so that they can make money off of you. That's just the name of the game. Anyone who understands the principles of life understands you give, you get. That's how this thing goes. So the lender is saying, if I'm gonna let you do all this and let you get in this property, I don't want you to turn around in a year or 2 years and say, you know what, okay, thanks, but bye, see you later. If you do, you got to pay the piper. You have to pay me. Why? Because you haven't held the loan long enough for me to make some money too, so that it can benefit me too. So when you go into it with that mindset and you're like, all right, I wouldn't have probably been able to qualify without this type of loan. But since you're doing this for me, I understand that there's a prepayment penalty. And like Tavares said, if I want the option and I have a 5 year, 3 year, 1 year, you're going to charge me, but I understand I'm not going to get upset. And I want y'all to understand this because when you call and when we're doing this financing, I want your mindset to be correct. I want your mindset to be of one of, okay, this is something where I'm giving and getting. I'm giving and I'm getting. But ultimately, what I'm getting is a property that's giving me additional sources of income. And I always tell people when you are pre-retirement, income matters, and when you are in retirement, income matters. I see it every single day where people want to retire and they have one or two sources of income. One source of income is going to eventually be Social Security, which most people don't want to wait till age 62 to stop working. And the other source of income may be a 401k, an IRA, or something like that. A few people have pensions. So when you think about real estate and its ability to throw an additional source of income for you, I want you to start getting creative and get over your real estate ain't for me. You know, my cousin told me she had a Section 8 tenant and they put a hole in her wall and they tore her place up and she had to get a new stove. Okay, get a new stove and keep it moving.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So
and that prepayment penalty, right? Because we're investors, we're real estate investors, right? And since you have tenants in your property, if your tenant signs a lease to live there for a year, but let's say they move out after 2 months, right? What you do, you make them sign, there is a penalty for that tenant, right? Because you are expecting to make that money for a year. So you're like, okay, if you want to move out early, based off of, our contract, if we want to go against our contract or deviate our contract, there's a penalty for that, right? So we have those same agreements with our tenants, and this loan type puts you in a position, or puts the lender in a position to have that same type of relationship with you, the borrower, and the lender. So it's the same. It's just on a different level.
Yeah, go in with the right mindset.
Mm-hmm.
The right mindset, and then knowing what you want to do. Like, what's your objective? What's your goal? So I think I am good for today's show.
Yeah, for sure.
I am hungry, almost hangry. So we're going to wrap up. Thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode of Mortgage Minded Mondays. If you joined us mid-show, be sure to start from the beginning and catch the beginning of the show. If you have not watched the other episodes, make sure you go back and do that as well. As always, if you need some personal questions answered, if you are ready to start your loan application, be sure to give myself or Tavares a call at 305-825-1444. Once again, that is 305-825-1444, and visit our website, www.thehendersonfinancialgroup.com. You are welcome, Mario. Thank you for tuning in, one of our loyal listeners and one of our most favorite clients. Thank you so much to Lawrence for being here. Thank you so much, Megan, for being here as well. And on Wednesday, Mr. Henderson and I will be back for a transition. So make sure you tune in and set your alarms for that show. Talk to you soon. Peace.